Hello there, we're going to be revising number topics, and there are 9 sort of mini topics that we're going to get through here. And so we've got types of number, operations and bracket, HCF and LCM, fractions, powers and roots, ratio and proportion, converting between fractions, decimals and percentages and rounding. So a lot to get through. This first part video is going to cover the first 3. Types of number, operations and bracket, and HCF LCM. So let's start off with types of number. So I'll try and cover as many things. It's not everything you need to know about these topics, but it's a sort of good little recap for revision. So some types of number we need to know is square numbers. Now square numbers are any numbers that result from squaring. So for example, 1 squared is 1, 1 is a square number. 2 squared is 4, 4 is a square number. 3 squared is 9, 9 is a square number. So if I list out the first, let's say 10 square numbers, we've got 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81 and 100. And you do need to recognise those. So it's really useful to just practice recognising those as square numbers. Cube numbers, you don't need to know the first 10, probably the first 5 is enough. And this is a result of cubing. So 1 times 1 times 1. That is the first cube number, 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Then 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then 3 cubed is 27. 4 cubed, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And then 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, 125. Also worth noting, if you want to square root a number, then you use this symbol. So for example, the square root of 49, that's 7. What squared makes 49? And with cube rooting, use the same symbol but with a little 3 there. So if I want the cube root of 125, that is 5. It's the opposite of cubing. All right, prime numbers. Prime numbers are numbers with exactly 2 factors. That's the official rule for these. So they're numbers that can only be divided by 1 and themselves. Now, the first prime number is not 1, it's 2. Because 1 doesn't have 2 factors, it's only got 1. So it's 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. 9 is not a prime number because it can be divided by 3. No even numbers other than 2 are prime because they can all be divided by 2. Then we've got 13, 17, 19, 23 and 29. Those are first, I think, 10 prime numbers that you might need to spot. But good way to test if a number is prime is to try dividing it by these numbers. Divide by 2, does it divide by 3, does it divide by 5, does it divide by 7? If it doesn't divide by any of them, then you've got yourself a prime number. Right, rational and irrational numbers. Rational numbers are denoted by this Q, and rational numbers are anything that can be written as a fraction, or a decimal, or a whole number, and they can be positive or negative, but pretty much anything that can be written as an exact fraction is a rational number. Irrational numbers, well, the most famous is pi, and it cannot be written as a fraction or a terminating decimal. It goes on forever without repeating. And some others that you might want, root 2, root 3, root 5, there's quite a lot of irrational numbers, infinite probably. Integers are whole numbers. Numbers like 4, like -7, like 21. No fractions or decimals for integers. They're whole numbers. Whole numbers. And then natural numbers, these are the counting numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11. So they are counting numbers, the ones we have in real life. And those are sort of the main little revision notes for types of number. I would suggest you make a note of those. Try and jazz them up so that you will remember them, especially the terminology. Prime numbers, a number with exactly 2 factors. Right, moving on to operations and brackets. This is about BODMAS. BODMAS. And this is the order we do operations in mathematics. So we start off by trying to do any brackets, if there's anything in brackets. Then we do any orders. Now orders are things like squares and cubes. So that's what we do next. Then we do any division or multiplication, whatever comes first. Then we do any addition or subtraction at the end. So let's do some examples. 4 plus 3 times 5. There's no brackets, no powers, no division. There's some multiplication. And we need to do that before we do the addition and subtraction. So here we do 3 times 5 is 15. And we're going to do 4 plus 15. And this one equals 19. So we do not do the 4 plus 3 first. We must do the multiplication first. In this next example, we're going to do the brackets first. So 5 minus 3 first, that's 2. Then we're going to do the power. So we're going to do 2 squared, which is 4. And then lastly, we're going to do 8 times that answer. So 8 times 4 is 32. And that's operations and brackets. BODMAS. You do the brackets first, orders come after that, then divide and multiply, then you add and subtract. Okay, HCF and LCM. HCF is highest common factor. LCM is lowest common multiple. So in order to tackle these, we need to know what factors and multiples are first. Well, factors are numbers that divide into a number with no remainder. So for example, 1 is a factor of 20 because 1 times 20 makes 20. 2 is a factor of 20 because 2 times 10 makes 20. So 10 and 20 are also factors of 20. Then we've got 4 times 5. And they are all the factors of 20. They're the numbers that divide into it. Multiples of 6, that's the times table. So 6 is a multiple of 6, then 12, 18, 24, etc., etc. So all the numbers in the times table, those are multiples. Now, if you want to find the highest common factor of 2 numbers, you could list all of the factors and find the highest one they have in common. Similarly, with lowest common multiple, you can list all of the multiples of 2 numbers and find the lowest one they have in common. But there is another method that I'm going to focus on here, and that is the division method. So I'm going to do 30 and 45. I want to know the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple for 30 and 45. Well, the division method, we're going to divide them both by the same number. So what goes into both of them? Well, I recognise that 3 divides into both of these. 3's into 30 are 10, and 3's into 45 go 15. Then I need to see if there's anything that divides into 10 and 15. Well, I know 5 goes into both of those. So let's divide by 5. 5's into 10 go 2. 5's into 15 go 3. What I do now, to find the highest common factor, I multiply these 2 common factors. So 3 times 5 gives me the highest common factor. So 15 is the highest common factor. If I want to find the lowest common multiple, I kind of make an L shape with all the numbers around the outside. So you see that L? We're going to do 3 times 5, which is 15, times 2, which is 30, times 3, which is 30 times 3 is 90. And so the lowest common multiple of 30 and 45 is 90. And I could check that by listing the multiples of 30 and 45. 30 is 30, 60, 90. And you can see there's my 90, and 45 is 45 and then 90. So there we go, the lowest common multiple of both of them. All right, that's the first three topics.